Blog Talk Radio.
Hello again, everyone. I'm Joe Lajanusa, welcoming you to another edition of Next on the Tee with Chris Mascaro, the show where legends, current players, and industry leaders all come to discuss the great game of golf. This morning, Chris has Next on the Tee, PGA Tour Pro, and co-founder of the Salute Military Golf Association, Jim Estes. And also, next on the tee, CEO of the World Golf Foundation, Steve Mona, will be joining us. So as always, we thank you for spending your morning with us, and enjoy Next on the Tee with Chris Mascaro. Chris, take it away.
Hey, thank you, Joe. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining me again this morning, Next on the Tee. I'm your host, Chris Mascaro, and today we've got two wonderful guests lined up to knock the dew off the tee with me. First up is going to be PGA professional Jim Estes. Jim has been a PGA pro for 20 years. He won the 1996 Nike Inland Empire Open, played in 4 U.S. Opens. He's also the co-founder of the Salute Military Golf Association, and he was voted the 2011 Golf Digest Best Teacher in the state of Maryland. So I look forward to talking to Jim here just in a few minutes. A little later, I'll be joined again by Steve Mona. Steve is the CEO of the World Golf Foundation and administrator for We Are Golf. He joined us over on the football side on Thursday Night Tailgate last month. He and his team from We Are Golf, and along with people like Jack Nicklaus, recently met with members of Congress on National Golf Day back on May 21st. I'm looking forward to hearing how all that went. So he'll be here about 20 minutes from now. But before we get started, we want to kick off the show like we do every week here by saluting the brave men and women serving in our military and everyone listening on the Armed Forces Radio Network. We also want to thank those of you who serve in every branch of public service. We appreciate the sacrifices you make to preserve our freedoms and our liberties. Our sincere thanks as well to Sean Cruz, Stephen Lee, and all the folks at Armed Forces Radio Network. It's an honor for us to be a part of your network. You can find our show by going to armedforcesradionetwork.org and clicking on the sports link that you're going to find in the bottom right-hand side of the page, or on the radio link that you're going to find in the upper right-hand corner. Also, please, be sure to follow those guys on Twitter. That's important to them as well. You can find them at the AFRN for the Armed Forces Radio Network. Now joining me is Jim Estes. Let me give you a little background on Jim. He was born in Washington, D.C., graduated with a B.A. in economics from the University of Maryland, played his college golf starting out at the University of Tennessee and then finishing up at the University of Maryland. He won the 1985 Maryland Amateur Championship, turned pro in 1988. Played on the Nationwide Tour for several years, winning the 1996 Nike Inland Empire Open. He won the 2007 Golf Magazine Innovator Award, 2008, the Middle Atlantic Section President's Award given out for outstanding contributions to the local community. That year, he was also the PGA Middle Atlantic Section Player of the Year. 2010, he went on to win the PGA Patriot Award winner, so I'm really looking forward to hearing about that. And in 2011, the Golf Digest Best Teacher in his home state of Maryland, and he is the co-founder of the Salute Military Golf Association, and I'm very excited to have him as part of Next on the Tee. Jim, how you doing this morning?
Great. Thanks for that intro. That was quite I hadn't even known. I forgot about all that stuff. Appreciate that.
Forgot all the great things you've done? Good for you.
I don't know about all that, but yeah, that was quite, that makes me feel good to know that I've done some things for the troops and tried to provide some service in the way of bringing golf to those men and women that are so bravely serving our armed forces.
Absolutely. You've done some wonderful things, and we're going to get into all of that. Jim, I kind of want to start really, though, at the beginning. I read that your father, who was an accomplished amateur player in his own right, introduced you to the game when you were 8. What got you started being interested in getting out on the course?
Well, my dad was a pretty good athlete. He played high school basketball, was all met in D.C. and at Blair. And actually, Morgan Wooten was on the same team with him. And Morgan actually backed up my dad. So my dad always said that's the reason Morgan was such a good coach at DeMatha, because he got to watch a lot. But so my dad got into golf after he got in. He was a surgeon, so he was good with his hands and being a good athlete. I think he took up golf at 34 and became a club champ. He got to the finals of the club championship and lost, but introduced to me when I was 8, and I had just an immediate love for the game. I would spend all the time out there I could learning how to play, but more importantly, I mean, I just loved to practice. I like to get in the sand trap and play around all day and chip and putt and play little games and stuff like that. So I think just the desire to practice and learn different shots and stuff was the reason I got better pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's a little different because mostly it's the practice that people dread, but the actual playing, actually playing the round that people enjoy. But that's great.
I know.
I'm sure that's a big reason why you were successful out there.
Yeah.
So you started your college career at Tennessee on a golf scholarship. First of all, how was the University of Tennessee able to wrestle you away from, whether it was the University of Maryland or anyone on the East Coast?
Yeah, it was a funny story. Howard Baker, I think was the Senate Majority Leader at the time,
right.
Wrote me a letter and asked me to come out to dinner with him, and he'd heard I was a pretty good golfer. I was playing in the Maryland and D.C. area, and at the time, Tennessee was actually very good in golf. At one point, Jim Gallagher Jr., who was on the Ryder Cup team in '91, he was on the team, and I went on a recruiting trip, and I saw that they were going to have 4 seniors, and then they were looking for one more guy to come in and really fill that 5th spot. And so I did. I decided to, and I enjoyed my time in Tennessee. And we finished. We got to the NCAA tournament my freshman year, and we ended up finishing in the top 15. So we had a good year that year, and all those guys graduated, and the coach was looking to build a range, but funding fell through, and I was picking up balls at the Cherokee Park there in Knoxville, and I was like, this isn't right. I need to do something else. So I called Fred Funk at the time, who was the coach over there at Maryland, and I asked him if he had a spot, if I could come and transfer, and he's like, sure, if you want to do that, no worries.
Oh,
so I went there, and we had my time there. I had the red shirt, so I lost a year, but I still, we had a good year. It's funny, one of the guys on the team, Mark Long, ended up caddying out on the PGA Tour for about 20 years. He's actually involved with the software development of the Sky Caddy, and he was a decent golfer, but he was known for his academics. He got straight A's in school, and he's the only guy I know that I think had an appointment to the Naval Academy in West Point and turned it down to go caddy. As it turned out, he's done just fine developing all these different things he's done. So we had a unique team at Maryland. We weren't the best, but we had fun.
Yeah, so you mentioned, Fred Funk was your coach. What was it like playing for Fred?
Well, it's funny because Fred, he thought the way to teach or help players was just to go out and practice and show you how to do it, and he spent a lot of time practicing, and he and I got into it because he would spend more time on his game than he would helping us. But he was like, well, you guys just need to adopt my practice habits and watch me and you'll get better. And I was like, I don't know about that. I think you need So as it turned out, I always kid him, but I think I said I probably spurred you on to quit coaching and go out and play, and then obviously that was the right move for him.
Agreed.
Yeah,
so the University of Maryland has had a few other outstanding alums who went on to play have some great careers. I mean, George Burns is an alum, Dean Beeman. To name just a few. Did you ever have an opportunity to sit down with either one of those guys, pick their brains a little bit?
It's funny. My dad, Dean, was pretty good friends with my dad. Dean was a very good businessman, late into his 20s, and he got into the insurance business and had a very decorated amateur career. My dad actually was taking up the game and used to play some with Dean, and so he would always pick Dean's brain, and he introduced me to Dean when I was about 9 or 10 years old. I got to play some with him. That was when he was just taking on the commissioner's job. Just started, and so that was neat, getting to know him through the years, talking to him about things. he was a big inspiration to me because he was a little guy like myself and didn't hit the ball very far, and was known as a phenomenal fairway wood player and putter. So it just shows you, back then, he looked at Nicklaus as his number one counterpart, but his mind was his number one asset, that and his ability to putt.
Mm-hmm. So you actually started out competing professionally over in South America, right?
Yeah, I played in South Africa and South America, and I wasn't a that great a player in college. I was majoring in economics, and I was studying so much. I didn't really play that well in college. I had a couple good tournaments, but I figured the study and the schoolwork, I wanted to get through school. Missing all that time in the spring, it was tough for me. I probably should have majored in something different, but as it turned out, I should have probably majored in something that was a little easier than economics. But playing early on, I didn't have much success. I went over to South Africa and for 3 months, and then had to Monday qualify for tournaments on that tour, and I only got in like 4 events, and I made a couple cuts. But it was just a good experience to play with guys like David Faraday was over there, and John Bland, and all these guys, Tony Johnstone, all these older fellows. Eamon Darcy, never forget that swing, and Gordon Brand. But that was a real good experience for me. Got to meet a lot of guys and learn how to play the game and see how it's done.
Yeah. So you come back over here. You win the 1996 Nike Inland Empire Open on the former Nike Tour, which is now obviously the Web.com Tour.
Right.
Overcutting, Stuart Sink was in that field. Did that win validate for you that you belonged on tour and you belonged competing up against some of the top players?
Well,
in
it
the
certainly validated the fact that I should give it a try, because I was playing. Yeah. I did it backwards. I went from playing and turning pro in '89 and '90 and trying to play on the Hogan Tour. I got my Hogan Tour card, made it to the finals, but didn't ever get my regular tour card. And then I ran out of money and took a job, right? And then I won the Assistants Championship in '91 in the Middle Atlantic section, and went on to take another few jobs. And then '96 rolls around, and I had still been going to Q school every year as an assistant pro and getting to the finals, but it was totally out of the blue to shoot 16 under and win that tournament. So the membership was like, well, why don't we just pay your salary, give you enough money for you and your family to be comfortable for a year, and you go out and play. And that's what I did, and then I kept playing for 96 season, 97, 98, 99, then 2000. So I played, like whatever that is, 5 years. And that was really fun. That was a good experience. But then at that point I was 32. I'd made it to the tour. I didn't keep my tour card, and I'd had enough because I knew what I needed. I probably needed to be a little younger and have more time and not have a family to pursue that. But it was a great experience, and I'm so happy that I did it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know our listeners on the Armed Forces Radio Network will be particularly interested in hearing about the Salute Military Golf Association. Talk about what inspired you to get that thing started.
Well, being a self-centered guy, being a guy that was all about me, being a pro, being a professional athlete, people coddle to you and cater to you. So I was pretty selfish. And when I got into the golf business, I had to become more other-centered. And just happenstance, one of the Vietnam vets who I teach had been volunteering over at Walter Reed to take guys out to dinner on Friday nights to a restaurant that was owned by a Vietnam vet who gave them free meals. He was taking some lessons, and he said, maybe it'd be a good idea for you to come to the restaurant and talk about golf, and maybe talk to the owner at the facility and see if you can get the guys free range balls, and then you could give them some lessons at no charge. And so that's exactly what I did, and I offered that service. And then I said, well, maybe we can fund this a little bit. So we had this Salute Serviceman Day, and we offered free lessons. I invited like 20 pros out there, and we had all these different Beat the Pro games and free lessons, and we had free demos of all the manufacturers brought the newest equipment out, and it turned out we raised like $30,000, and when that funded the lessons. So then I didn't have to just give my time away. At that point, I was using disabled American veterans as the organization to underwrite. In other words, all the money was going to that organization, and then that money was put in a bank account, a holding account, to be used for lessons and equipment. So we went through all that money, and then the guy that was doing the books is like, why don't you just do this on your own? Why don't you just become incorporated? And I was like, well, I don't know what's involved there. So I'll talk to some friends of mine who are business folks. And so that's what we did, and we started out with just a little clinic at 15 people, and now we're in 9 different locations throughout the country, and we average about 80 to 100 soldiers at these clinics. So, and we raise about $500,000 a year, and 98% of that money goes towards the utilizing that money goes towards the golf equipment, custom-fitted equipment for people with all kinds of disabilities. We've bought a Paragolfer, which is a three-wheeled vehicle that has a hydraulic chair that allows people with, maybe lower extremities missing, or maybe they're paralyzed to play. And so it's been great. It's been an eye-opening experience to have people that are passionate about learning and are disciplined, and they have all the character traits. These folks, these men and women in the uniform, have all the character traits it takes to be a good golfer. Just many of them never been exposed to it. So, trying to grow the game. This is one demographic that everybody could probably could utilize. The golf professionals could utilize this demographic if they want to grow the number of people playing the game, because there's so many good athletes in the military that just haven't been exposed to this. And I've worked with double and triple amputees and single arm amputees, and these guys are playing in the 80s and 90s and playing great golf.
Yeah, so that's the interesting part, Jimmy. You talk about the military vets who have lost their limbs but not their desire to play the game of golf. Do you see is it a mix between introducing people that have never played the game to this, and folks that have prior to their military service and being veterans, love the game of golf, thought they were never going to be able to play the game again because
Right.
they have lost some extremity, and now you're giving them the opportunity to come back. Are there other partners that are in there with you, like the Wounded Warrior Project, and companies that are helping donate things like the extremities that these folks?
We've applied for a grant from Wounded Warrior Project, but they're really not into sports-related activities. They're more into education and trying to get jobs. But Booz Allen Hamilton was a sponsor on the PGA Tour for a number of years, and they have partnered with us, and they've got cities. At 20 different cities now across the nation, they're going to be doing golf events as a part of a team-building exercise and as a part of introducing vets into the defense contracting industry. And so that is going to be a huge help to us, because obviously we're small and it's difficult to raise money in this climate. So there's a lot of competition, just like in the for-profit industry. So we've been fortunate. We have one tournament every year that we net about $80,000, but the rest of it just comes from outside sources. So it's exciting that things have gone from back in 2007 to a very small little organization to a fairly we're growing fairly rapidly. So it's great. I mean, we still got a lot of work to do, and there's people with PTS and people with TBI, and it's the numbers are astronomical when you talk about 2 million people with PTS that have been that have served. We've got a lot of work to do. So we've only helped.
When you say PTS, what's PTS?
Well, PTS is post-traumatic stress, disorder.
Okay. Right.
Now, I mean, there's PTSD, but post-traumatic stress. Anyone that's served in, and it doesn't necessarily have to be in combat. It could be any traumatic event, a car accident where someone gets killed, or getting held up at gunpoint, or whatever. I mean, that kind of stuff. There's a ton of that in the military, and so this game of golf is great for that, because it gets people in an atmosphere and an environment where they can talk about it. with their peers. People like myself don't really understand. I mean, I've had anxiety and depression, but nothing like what they're experiencing. And so having lunch, and a 2-hour golf clinic has really helped these guys come out of their shell and talk about the issues that they face, sleeping issues, maybe closed-in places or open spaces, closed doors. They have to face the door when they're in a restaurant, stuff like that. I mean,
sure.
And so beyond just the physical injuries, there's just those invisible wounds people don't see. So there's anger management issues, people on the front lines learning to fight, that carries over in their personal life sometimes with anger. And so anyway.
Yeah. So like I mentioned in the intro, Jim, 2010, you were the PGA Patriot Award winner for your commitment to our shoulders. Talk about that award and what it meant to you.
Well, the award was huge. Dan Rooney did 3 tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, and he started this Patriot Award for the PGA. And
is that right?
Yeah, and he, one of the things that he did to start is he provides scholarships for the fallen and wounded, the men and women of the fallen and wounded. So, so he was the first Patriot Award winner, and then I was the third one actually. But patriotism and through the game of golf, the commitment and the dedication to the men and women of this country is such a, I can't think of a better group of people to help out. They're so respectful. Their discipline and their conduct and the integrity, all the things that the game of golf stand for.
Right.
It's just a perfect fit, It's a perfect fit.
Right.
So it was a blessing for me. I think it changed my life in so many ways. Helping other people use the game to somehow enhance the quality of their life has really been a gift. And just yesterday, I get the opportunity to work with this guy as a double amputee. And, here's a guy who was a great athlete, and he was trying golf. His right hand is, the nerves in his right hand don't allow him to use his fingers. And, he'd been out there practicing golf for like 2 or 3 hours on his own, never taking any lessons, and he's like, he couldn't hit the ball at all. He was ready to give up. He comes for a lesson, and I got him hitting 100 yards, and you'd think he won the lottery or something. He kept thanking me over and over and over. I can't tell you how much this is helping me. I don't even play basketball because I used to play really well, and I don't even want to play. So this game has sort of been a substitute. It's given me something to focus on. And when you hear that kind of stuff, it just makes it all worthwhile.
Yeah, I bet it does. That's a gift that you give to them, they give back to you. It's a wonderful thing. That's
yeah. He's sitting there saying, "Dude, I can't believe this. I've been trying to do this for the last 3 months. I couldn't hit the ball 5 feet, and now I'm hitting it 120 yards."
That's great stuff. Yeah, that's stuff you take with you. It makes your heart happy.
Exactly.
So, Jim, real quick before we let you go, I've got our next guest, Steve Mona, hanging with us on the line. We're going to get to Steve in just a second. But you've got, you played in 4 U.S. Opens. Taking a look at what you're seeing so far this weekend, is anyone going to be able to catch Martin Kaymer?
Well, I played at 4 Opens, never made the cut, played in the PGA, and I got to play with Martin Kaymer. And at the time, if he'd have just made the cut at the PGA Championship, he would have been on the Ryder Cup team, and he double bogeyed the 16th hole. I was playing with him. Of course, I double bogeyed it too to miss the cut by a couple shots. But you see a guy who's really gone through the process of maturation. He's been there enough now. He's experienced the pressure, but there's 2 things in his career that are going to serve him well this weekend. One, making that putt in the Ryder Cup. That was huge. So his putter is going to be an asset under pressure. And I can't say that about anybody up on the leaderboard right now. I think he's a better putter under pressure than any of those people up there. But, his ball striking is good, but I think, you're going to see some wild shots out of him. So I think today he'll shoot probably par or one over. And I think somebody's going to shoot a 66 or 7 that's up there in the top 5 or 6 players. And like my dark horse pick would be a guy like from us, like a Brandt Snedeker or maybe even Hunter Mahan. But I don't know if he's high enough up there to make a run. But somebody's going to get hot and make a run at Keimer. I don't think he's going to run away with it today at all.
All right. Well, Jim, for our listeners, how can they follow you and stay in touch with you, whether it's online or on social media?
Yeah, so number one, Golf Doc is my Twitter handle. And then JimEstesGolf.com or smga.org. Those are SMGA. You can donate online on our website. If you're a wounded warrior, we have something called the American Golfer Program. If you want to play the game of golf and you served in combat and you want to learn from a PGA professional, please give Stephanie Lundy or Dan Flieger at our office a call. And we have this American Golfer Program. We serve people nationwide. Give them the opportunity to use golf. Give them, if they've served in combat and they've been injured, you're going to get a free set of clubs and free lessons for life. So.
Wow, that's fantastic right there. Again, what's the website? SMG.
SMGA, Salute Military Golf Association.org. So just smga.org.
Got it. All right. Well, Jim, thank you so much for taking time out of your morning. It's great. Yeah, we'd love to have you come back sometime. We'd love to stay in touch and keep the relationship going. You're fantastic.
Would love to.
All
Thanks so much. Thank you all.
Have a great morning
out there.
All right. Thank you, Jim, and have a great day. Enjoy the U.S. Open, and all the best to you and your family.
Thank you. Take care.
Good night. Good day. All right. Jim Estes, that's fantastic stuff right there. smga.org. Please, men and women that are part of the military, what a great program. Please get involved and check it out. We're going to get to our next guest, Steve Mona, right after this quick station identification.
This is Joe LaGenusa from Thursday Night Tailgate, and you're listening to On the Tee with Chris Mascaro on the Armed Forces Radio Network.
Now joining me is Steve Mona. Steve is the CEO of the World Golf Foundation, an organization that manages the World Golf Hall of Fame, the first tee in Golf 2020. He was the CEO of the Golf Course Superintendents Association of America for 14 years, executive director of the Georgia State Golf Association here in Atlanta for over a decade. He joined us last month over on the football side on Thursday Night Tailgate, and I'm very excited to have him back with me again this morning on Next on the Tee. Steve, how have you been?
I've been great, Chris. How about you?
Oh, fantastic! Thank you. Enjoying the U.S. Open, and things have been going really well. Thank you. The last time we spoke, you were actually about to go up and address Congress along with Jack Nicklaus and several others back on World Golf Day regarding the impact of the golf industry on our economy. One of the things many people may not know is the golf industry generates over $4 billion a year for charities, which is more than Major League Baseball, the NBA, NFL, and hockey. All of those combined, golf dwarfs. Talk about that and how the meeting went with Congress.
Well, we had our 7th annual National Golf Day in Washington, D.C. on May 21, and it was, in a word, fantastic. We were able to meet with over 100 members of Congress. We had Jack Nicklaus with us, as you mentioned, and Jack always draws a crowd, as you might imagine. But beyond that, he's such a great ambassador for the game. And so we were delighted to have Jack with us, and we were able actually to move some legislation along that was of importance to us. So all in all, a very good day for golf on May 21 in Washington.
So as you know, kind of the next step, if you will, Steve, what came out of those conversations? What are some things that we may see as whether it's golf enthusiasts, golf fans, or whatnot? What can we expect to see or read about based on the things that you guys talked about?
Well, I'll give you 2 examples. One, without getting too technical, we were able to change the trajectory of legislation with respect to conservation easement tax incentives. And just to make this simple, golf courses have been eligible since 2006 for tax incentives if they donate land for use as a conservation easement. And on both the Senate and the House side, there was consideration to remove golf courses among the eligible land uses. And so we were able to convince, both members of the Senate Finance Committee and the House Ways and Means Committee that a golf course should be viewed the same as any other land use, a vineyard, a forest, what have you. And so they listened to what we said, and now golf courses have retained their ability to make those donations of land and receive a tax incentive as a result of that. So that was very important to us. And then the second piece was more educational, if you will. We, and you alluded to this earlier, but we have spent a significant amount of time communicating with members of Congress about the economic and charitable impact of golf on our economy. When you consider almost $70 billion in economic impact, almost 2 million jobs, we're larger than the spectator sports and the performing arts industries combined. So our message is that golf contributes in a meaningful way to the economy. It certainly contributes in a significant way to charities in the United States. As you mentioned, almost $4 billion a year.
Right.
And so those messages really resonated this year, and including this year for the first time a visit to the White House. So we spent about an hour or so in the West Wing of the White House meeting with presidents, some of his key economic advisors. So that was new territory for us. So we continue to spread the message, and it's significant.
Yeah, well, to that point, Steve, what's it like going over to the West Wing of the White House? What's that experience like for you?
Well, I'll tell you, I've been blessed in my career to have had the chance to do a lot of pretty interesting and neat things, but that would have to rank right up there. We, first of all, just the security to get in there is not easy, but we all made it through, and then we were escorted to the waiting area, which is very interesting because the area in which you wait for your meeting is the same waiting area where people wait for meetings in the Oval Office. So that was interesting. And then the other thing that was interesting about it, as it turned out, the Seattle Seahawks were there that day.
Is that right?
The president, he does photo ops, as you know, with a lot of teams that win various championships. So they just happened to be there that day. So it made for an interesting hour or so that we were in the West Wing.
No doubt. Get an opportunity to talk to Russell Wilson or Pete Carroll, any of the Seahawks?
We didn't bump into any of them. Their owner was around, but other than that, we didn't see any of the players at the time we were there.
Okay. All right. So, speaking of economic impact and what it has on different organizations or on the country as a whole, I have to imagine that having the men's and women's U.S. Open in back-to-back weeks has to bring a huge amount of money to the local economy around Pinehurst and in the state of North Carolina over the entire month, because you got the weeks leading up to it, and then I'm sure some days after both of these events. So people are pouring in money to those areas. Could we see the joining of these U.S. Opens continue going forward because of that economic impact, of what it can do for cities around the country?
Well, I think the decision whether to do back-to-back will be predicated more on the golf facility itself and whether it can handle that kind of traffic. And apropos to your point, what's going to occur, and already is occurring, obviously, in North Carolina, over those 2 weeks will be close to $170 million of economic impact.
Wow.
And there'll be about 400,000 spectators that'll converge on Pinehurst number 2 over that 2-week period of time. And just to give you some context, last year, now this is just 1 week, keep in mind, obviously, but last year the U.S. Open was at Marion in suburban Philadelphia, and that generated about $100 million in economic impact. Then the year before it was at the Olympic Club in San Francisco and generated about $140 million. So this is obviously doing more than that. Now, granted, it's 2 weeks, but Pinehurst number 2 and the whole Pinehurst complex really lends itself to something like this. It's such a vast complex that can handle large groups of people, and it's well-suited for this. I personally would love to see the USGA do this again. I think it's going to be great for golf. It's going to bring a lot of attention to the women's game, which is super. But it's really going to be driven more, can the facility itself handle 2 straight weeks of U.S. Opens, essentially.
Right, yeah. So, I mean, to your point, Steve, if we get to, a week from Sunday or a week from Monday, probably more likely, and the superintendents and the USGA, walk around and the golf course looks, hey, we did pretty well. The LPGA US Open, for the ladies, came off pretty well. If all goes, I guess, according to plan, do you think there's a real likelihood that this could be a thing going forward?
Well, let me put it this way: if it goes well from the quality of the competition standpoint, and I see no reason that won't happen, and if it goes well from a commercial standpoint, and I see no reason why that won't happen, and then the third piece is if it goes well from a spectator and fan interest standpoint, i.e. TV ratings, then I think there's a real chance that we'll see this again. I really do. So this was always set up as an experiment. It's never been done before, as you know. Right. But I'm pretty sure that the USGA, if all three of those elements pass the test, so to speak, I wouldn't at all be surprised to see this happen again.
So you mentioned TV ratings, right? And obviously that's what drives so many things. All sports is really around, TV contracts and TV ratings. Now we know, sort of in a Tiger-less environment right now, the Masters, ratings were down. PGA Championship player, the Players Championship, I should say, players were down. Do we really need to, compare, year after year? Do we really need to start taking a look at some things and go, look, that, Tiger Mania was a phenomenon. And when Tiger's not in it, of course the ratings are going down because he brought in more than just the golf fan. He brought in, sort of casual fans to the game. Do we really need to look back at year to year? Is that a fair comparison because he isn't playing or isn't, going to be in this thing this year? Or do we need to go back to, whether that's in the 90s or some prior period to really look at a more apples-to-apples comparison to decide if this thing was successful or not?
Well, yeah, very good question. You raised several points. Let me make several comments, the first of which is, with respect to ratings, the PGA Tour ratings do well with or without Tiger. So the way that we view it is you're building off a solid base to begin with. And on a cumulative basis, if you add up all of the people who watched televised golf over the course of a year, but by the time the year is out, the cumulative number is close, Tiger or no Tiger. That's cumulative over the course of the year. Yeah, that's cumulative over the course of the year. That's correct. Now, what happens, though, as you pointed out, is individual events, the ratings can fluctuate wildly. And what happens, and we should just be straight about it, is that when Tiger plays an event, number one, and number two, if he's in contention, then that's probably going to mean about a 30% boost to the ratings. Right. So and for the reason that you outlined, he is a transcendent athlete. They don't come along very often. He brings people to our game who are really not golf fans per se. They're very casual. They're sports fans. They love to see a once-in-a-lifetime athlete compete. So we should all be very, very respectful of what Tiger's done for our game because athletes like him come along once in a lifetime, really. Now, having said that, the Tour is doing a good job of highlighting other athletes that are coming on board now and playing very well. You have the Jordan Spieths, Rory McIlroys, young people who, now will they be Tiger? I don't know, but they're certainly going to be athletes that are going to capture the imagination of the average golf fan. So the way we look at it is we've got a very stable base. We've got a very loyal core group of fans who watch the sport week in and week out, and it's our job to continue to build on that. And the way you do it is by humanizing the athletes and giving people a reason to follow them. So, and the other piece I would say is Tiger's coming back. I mean, I know he's been out, and he may be out for probably several more weeks. I mean, I don't know when he's going to come back, but he'll be back, and he's going to. Don't be surprised if he comes back and he gets a second win, so to speak, and competes at a very high level again. Who knows where he's going to end up vis-a-vis Jack's record? Who knows where he's going to end up vis-a-vis Sam Snead's record? But he's not done by any means. He's if you look at Phil Mickelson, look at Ernie Els. They both win the Open Championship in consecutive years at age 40 plus. There's no reason why Tiger can't do that. So he's by no means finished.
No, I don't think anybody thinks he's done. I think you're right. I think the debate is more, can he reach Jack's record? And, that's always been the debate since, very early on in his career. But no, I don't think anyone thinks, that he's not going to be a force on, when he comes back, force out on the tour. Steve, kind of getting back a little bit to Pinehurst, do you think golf courses around the world are going to look at what the redesign of Pinehurst, what they've done, and go to more centerline watering and sort of let the rough be, more what they're calling, I guess, natural vegetation and sort of waste areas with sand to save money and to save, water usage, be more, environmentally conscious, and ultimately what can happen is make the game more affordable for people to play?
Yeah, absolutely right. I think you're going to see two things. One, because of the reality of water and how scarce of a resource it is in so many parts of the country, golf courses just aren't going to have the ability to irrigate as they did, let's say 20, 30 years ago, maybe even 10 years ago. And I think that's going to continue to become more of an acute issue. So golf courses will have to, in certain parts of the country, irrigate less area, acreage, and be very judicious where they put a very finite resource. So that's number one. Number two, from an economic standpoint, as you suggest, even if water is fairly abundant, which it is in certain parts of the country, I think you're going to see more and more of an emphasis on having areas that are very much in play, i.e. in the center of the golf course, so to speak, well-maintained and intensely managed and irrigated. But then as you get into the, shall I say, the less traveled parts of the golf course, i.e. the roughs, and into, for some people anyway, and then off to the sides of there, you'll see less of that. And so I think it's going to be two things. I think just the reality of the availability of water is going to drive it, and then I think two, economics are going to drive it. And I really commend the USGA. We're going to see 2 years in a row of U.S. Opens that are going to look like Pinehurst does. Chambers Bay next year, depending upon what's going on in the natural weather pattern, will have something to do with it. But that will look a little, maybe not much like Pinehurst. It's a different terrain, but it's going to look more like that. So the USGA and the U.S. Open in particular creates a kind of a model, if you will, in some respects, of what a golf course can look like. And I think this is good. I think the days of the high rough, irrigated wall-to-wall, tremendously high maintenance, those are behind us, and I think that's actually good for the game.
No, is that right? So you think that's all done?
Well, let me put it this way. There will be facilities that have the budgets and have the resources to maintain golf courses sort of in that wall-to-wall, parkland, green kind of style. Yeah. And more power to them. But I think increasingly, because of those two reasons. Well, sure, a place like that. That's just the way that club's set up, and right. And that's a whole different look, and that actually creates a lot of interest in the game too, as you know. I mean, typically the Masters is the highest rated televised golf event of the year, so that's good for the game in a whole different way. But my point is, I'm talking just courses that all of us play day in and day out. Right. I think for those two reasons, the scarcity of water and the economics of maintaining golf courses as parkland, wall-to-wall, I think you're going to see golf move away to a browner look, to a less intensely maintained and irrigated look outside of the kind of the center lines of the fairways. And I think that'll be good for the game in the main.
Right. No, I agree. I mean, I've loved watching what I've seen so far of Pinehurst on TV. I mean, I think it looks great. I think they've done a great job. Congratulations to Coors and Crenshaw for what they've done. I know it's sort of going back to the original course design, but I think it looks fantastic, and I'm looking forward to seeing more and playing more golf courses that actually look like that. I think that's a wonderful thing for our environment, and hopefully, like I say, it trickles down to make golf more affordable for people to play around the country and gets more people involved. One more thing before we let you go, Steve, and you guys do such an outstanding job with the first tee and getting introducing the game to kids. What things have you got going on there? What things can our listeners and to parents and children look forward to from the first tee?
Well, I would make a few comments. First, the first tee is now available really in 4 different delivery channels, if you will. And let me tell you what they are. And I think it's important for your listeners to understand this, because the traditional first tee chapter, which has been a physical location in a town, continues, and we have close to, in the neighborhood of about 180 first tee chapters that are physical chapters located all around the country. I mean, that's really the bedrock of the first tee, but there's 3 other delivery vehicles now. There's what's called the National Schools Program, where the first tee is now being offered at about 6,600 elementary schools around the country. That's correct.
Wow.
As part of the PE curriculum for elementary age students. So we have young elementary age boys and girls now being introduced to golf and the first tee through their PE classes at these elementary schools. And our goal is to increase that to 10,000 elementary schools by 2017. So that's important. No, the next delivery mechanism is through, and this is very appropriate for your listeners, is through the military. The first tee is on virtually all military bases in the United States and most military bases around the world, so that we can offer the first tee to the children of the men and women who are serving our country. And that's critically important.
Yes.
And then the fourth area, and this is the newest, we made a decision that we need to go to where the kids are. And so we need to figure out where the kids congregate and can we bring the first tee to them? And the answer is yes. And so we're partnering up now with YMCAs and Boys and Girls Clubs to bring the first tee to those facilities in the form of after-school programs for young children, boys and girls. So if you think about it now, you can have first tee really part of your life almost all day, because if you happen to be at an elementary school that offers it, you can get it during the school day, number one. Number two, you can go to an after-school program, a Boys and Girls Club, a YMCA, et cetera, and you can be offered it. And number three, if you happen to have a local chapter in your area, then you can go there on the weekends and during the summer. So we're trying to make the first tee available and accessible to all. And on that note, our goal is to reach 10 million young people between 2012 and 2017, and we're well on our way to doing that. The other piece I would mention with respect to the first tee is, as we've discussed before, it's much more than simply a junior golf program. Sure, it teaches you golf skills, but more importantly, we think it teaches you life skills, and that manifests itself through the 9 core values that we teach. And then relatively new to the first tee is what's called the 9 healthy habits. Annika Sorenstam is the honorary chair of that. But now kids learn how to make good choices around their diet, exercise, etc. And so we're trying to not only teach them life skills, but we're also trying to teach them wellness habits that will serve them well throughout their life.
Right. That's fantastic stuff, Steve, all the way around for where, how you've expanded it, where your goals are at in the ancillary piece around that. That's fantastic stuff. Congratulations to you and everyone that's put that stuff together.
Well, thank you, Chris. It's a good group of people. The PGA Tour has been a great partner and has helped drive so much success of the first tee. It's a well-run organization. Joe Barrow is the chief executive, and he does a great job along with the staff. And there's literally thousands of volunteers around the country that really make this happen, and that's really the strength of the first tee.
Right. Well, Steve, before we let you run, how can people follow you and the organizations that you're working with, whether it's online or over social media? How can they get involved?
Well, what I would suggest is a couple things. One, there's a website called wearegolf.org. And that is probably the best place to go if you're interested in anything that we just discussed, with the exception of another site, which is golf2020.org. and that will bring you to the other programs that we discussed that are more around player development. So wearegolf.org, golf2020.org, and that will take you in every direction that you need to go. So those would be the two places I would point your listeners.
Okay. All right. Well, Steve, thank you so much for coming here on Next on the Tee. We enjoyed you so much on Thursday Night Tailgate. We needed to get you on the golf side because of all the wonderful things that you told us there, and we wanted to make sure this audience was aware of it as well. We hope you'll keep coming back from time to time, updating us on the things that that you guys are doing, the organizations you're working with are doing, and just overall what's going on around the game of golf, because you're fantastic.
Well, thanks, Chris. It's great to be with you. I really appreciate you giving me this opportunity to speak to such an important listening audience as what you represent, and it's a pleasure and an honor, really, to be heard by so many people that mean so much to our country. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you, Steve. We look forward to catching up with you again, hopefully in the not-too-distant future. In the meantime, all the best to you and your family.
Thank you, and to you too, Chris.
All right. Thanks, Steve. Have a good day.
You too.
All right, everybody. It's time to put a bow on this one. What a great thing Steve was talking about there. Holy cow. The wearegolf.org and the golf2020.org sites, please take a look at those. First tee opportunity for all the men and women listening here on the Armed Forces Radio Network, and it'll be found on the military bases around the world. Wonderful opportunity for you and your children to get involved and play the game of golf, get introduced if you haven't been already. I love the things that they are working on, and boy, looking forward to seeing more golf courses actually go to the centerline watering and seeing some of the natural vegetation that's going to take over in the rough side. Hopefully, like Steve says, that trickles down and makes the game affordable for more and more people. I think that's an exciting development as well. Like I say, time to put a bow on this one. Thanks also to Jim Estes for being an outstanding guest as well, and to our announcer, Joe LaGenusa, who always does such an outstanding job kicking off the show every week. And I thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you the very most. Please also check out our sister show, like you've heard us mention throughout the course of this one, Thursday Night Tailgate, with me and my co-host, Bob Lazari, and our announcer, Joe LaGenusa, over there as well. You can hear us right here on the Armed Forces Radio Network, as well as Blog Talk Radio, TuneIn, Spreaker, SoundCloud, and radio sites across the Internet. That show airs every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. We bring you 5 current or former NFL players or coaches, people from the media. We are official partners with the NFL Alumni Association, as well as being the official radio show of Mike Ditka's Gridiron Greats organization. So you can hear a lot of great NFL talk over there every week out of the year. So football season never ends on Thursday Night Tailgate. Please also check out both shows on Facebook. Give us a like. So Next on the Tee and Thursday Night Tailgate. You can interact with the show, give us some questions, thoughts, all that sort of stuff. We appreciate that. Please also check us out online. You can find this show nextonthetee.net and ThursdayNightTailgate.com. You can stream or download any of our archived episodes and keep up to date with some of our future guests on either side as well. And until next week, my friends, hit 'em straight.